fighting for the guy that was on the inside, the person that I believed I could be, that person of passion and character and worth and value, that person of, integrity and life and purposefulness. The guy I was on the inside, I wanted to see on the outside. But it was challenging. He wouldn't, I would still deal with fear. I would still deal with things, hold back and try and control my outcomes because what if I fail at it?
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the inspiring podcast challenging norms and helping you redefine vulnerability as a strength. I'm your host, Reggie D. Ford. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle dives into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability in fostering meaningful connections, healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth. Sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable, but good workouts often are. So join us and flex that vulnerability muscle. Welcome to this episode of Vulnerability Muscle. I'm your host, Reggie D. Ford. And today with me, I have Mark Collins. Mark is the founder of Freedom for Life and the author of the transformational leadership book, Life Mastery, Living by Design, Not by Default. He has seen hundreds of lives transformed through his Life Mastery suite of courses and has a singular passion to see people unleashed as the hero they are created to be in their businesses, relationships, and lives. Today is Mark Collins. Hello, Mark. How you doing?
Doing great, Reggie. Thanks for having me on for the conversation.
Yes, I'm excited for this. And I absolutely love unlocking that hero that we have inside of us. And I think that that's something that I'm excited to talk about. But before we jump into that, I have three questions for you, and you let me know. It's called What Comes to Mind. And so the first thing that you can
Okay.
think of, what comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
Discomfort.
Ooh, okay. Well, I recognize that, and I think that that is a common thing for people. If at any point in this conversation you feel that discomfort rising, or you feel like you don't want to touch on certain things, I hope you feel empowered, and you definitely have the right to say, absolutely not. We're not going there. We're stopping. We're doing any. So you guide this, okay?
No problem. And actually, to be totally honest, discomfort isn't a bad thing.
Ooh,
I've worked out in my life. It doesn't look like it now, but when I was younger, I did it a lot. And the interesting thing was, as you probably already know, Reggie, the the level of stress you're willing to put your body through at a reasonable level, the more you grow. And
yes.
I know I'm doing the right thing in my own life when I'm feeling that place of vulnerability, of discomfort, of I don't like this. It's in that place that I get to find out where I'm really at and where I need
Yes.
to be going.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. And yes, is that there's a thing. There's stress, there's positive stress. And
Yeah.
that positive stress that we put ourselves through, that we put our bodies through, our minds through, it does. It helps us grow. It helps us explore the bounds of our limitations, which as you keep stressing yourself, you realize that there really aren't any. And so I love that answer. Thank you. What do you do, Mark, to center yourself if you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed or maybe even depressed?
For me, I have certain practices that I use, and it's the same ones that I invite the people that I work with to do as well. So, first and foremost, the foundation of our work is identity, and so the more I understand who I am, the less I worry about my circumstances and what's around me. The more I'm
Mm,
allowing my circumstances to dictate who I am and or what I'm able to do, then at that point, that's where stress comes in and challenge and all of that. So for me, centering is coming back to the truth and the understanding that I'm the answer walking into the circumstance, not the question to be figured out. I may not have the answer walking in, but I will when I need it. And so in that place, even today, got a couple of things that happened that I need to manage later on in my day that I'm already finding solutions for, but it can easily lead to stress where you don't know what's going to happen, or you can lead to confidence. And that's not an easy journey. But
mm.
when you can get to that place, then all of a sudden, like the title of my book, you can master your life, not just manage it.
Wow. Wow. That's powerful. I am the solution of the circumstance that I'm walking into, not the question to be figured out. Oh, man. That is so good. That's so good. Oh, last one here. What is one of your favorite childhood memories?
Yeah, that's a great question. My family moved a lot, so there was a lot going on for us. My dad was in the military, so we were in lived in quite a few places. So, what was a favorite childhood memory? Um, Probably just time together and time like, at the holidays and Christmas and what have you. Those times
Mhm.
where you feel kind of connected and those things that really bring joy to you. When you're a kid, you're always looking forward to Christmas. You're looking forward to your birthday or whatever. So yeah, as a child, I think that was probably it was those kind of opportunities and activities that we had.
Yeah, definitely. That's fun. I think always like it's so much joy. Well, not for everyone. Joy around the holidays. I can say for me, and just being connected to family. My favorite holiday growing up, and probably still today, is Thanksgiving, because I felt like it was about all the right stuff. It didn't come with materialistic
Mm,
things. It was until the Black Friday events got pushed up further and further. And but it was family, it was food, it was some football, it was fun. And
yeah.
so I really enjoy that. That's great. Tell me a little bit more about the family growing up. So you said you were part of a military family. Where all did you live?
Yeah, my dad was in the Air Force, and so I tell people I lived in 5 states and one foreign country by the time I was in the sixth grade, which for me was 12 years old.
Wow.
So all throughout the Western U.S. and then Germany was the foreign country that we lived in for a period of time. So yeah, I grew up all over the place. So got really used to moving, got really used to leaving relationships behind, but also got really used to figuring out new cultures and the things that made people tick in the areas that they lived, the foods that they had, the activities, and all of that. So that actually carried on into my adulthood. So yeah, my dad was in the military and then he finally retired. And then it was my turn to move around and kind of figure out my own way in life. Came to My dad retired in Utah. It was the last place he was stationed. And then I moved to California myself to find my own way, to really become my own person and kind of make my own way in life. And I tell people I came to California to become a rock star, which of course is everybody's story, actor or rock star, but it really wasn't going towards something. It was going away from something. I was in college, didn't like the end of that road and didn't feel like it was something that was for me at the time. So I moved to California to really find a different way and get away from the life I didn't want to live.
Mhm.
Being at that point, stuck in a job and doing something that maybe, wasn't at the level that I wanted. So I was always kind of an entrepreneur at heart. So came to California to do that. Lucky for me, I met my wife here. We've been married 33 years, developed career, developed ministry, developed a business and a passion, and started creating the things that we'll probably talk about later in Life Mastery, not just the book, but the course that I've invested in so many people.
Yeah. I'm curious when that mindset, when you knew that you didn't want to live the life of the job, the everyday, the mundane, or however you want to describe that. When did you realize that you didn't want that life?
When I had my first job. I remember for me, I didn't start working till after high school, but after high school, I worked a lot. Had 3 part-time jobs while still going to college, and if early on in my college career. And I remember being at my first job early on and thinking, "Why am I doing this? Why am I taking orders from somebody else?" It wasn't that I despised the job or the hard work. It was, I don't know. It was there's just sense that there was something more for me than that, and it doesn't, I admire people who stay in a vocation, a job their whole career, and that wasn't something that really drove me, but I admire people who do. But for me, it was just this understanding of there's more than investing in somebody else's dream,
Mm,
building somebody else's business, investing in those things with my life for what other people have decided is, the dream, the vision, the goal, the product, the service, whatever it is. So it was early on, and it was probably, like, again, moving around to a lot of places. There's a couple of things that happened. One was I got to be really introverted because you're always, I'm sure you've been there, Reggie, or maybe not, but for me, you're always the odd man out. You're the new kid in the area, and that happened a lot. So it was something where you kind of pull back and you're more introverted. But in the other sense, it was a level of independence of because we moved to so many different places and because we had to not really restart, but kind of restart relationships and community and all of that. And because of my dad's personality, we all grew up, my sisters and myself, pretty independent. So I think the independence itself, the willingness to believe that there was more than the life I was living, and
Mm.
the adventure of being willing to go after it, led to those things. And all of that was probably a portion of my childhood and the experiences I've had and the growth I had in that and growing up.
Wow. Wow. Yes. Oh man. I can totally resonate with so much of what you just said because early in the jobs that I worked, I it was just this sense of I need to, for me, for my personality, for my desires, for my passion and drive, need to be doing something different. And it
Yeah.
doesn't look like the same thing every day. It doesn't look like the same company every day. It looks like something creative. It looks like something that I have a hand in the direction of. And so the entrepreneurial bug bit me very early, and it's stuck around. I'm curious because I think for when I look back in my life, I think part of not wanting to work a job was not wanting to be told what to do. And then you said something really good, not wanting to invest in somebody else's dream and seeing their future grow while you're capped. And so that was a big part for me. Was do you think there was any role of and I don't want to have this be a loaded question, but with your dad being in the military, was there a sense of like, don't tell me what to do because of that? Or am I just, yeah.
No, I think that's an interesting question, and for sure that phrase resonates with me as well. In wanting to not be told what to do. Um,
Mhm,
it wasn't just because my dad was in the military, but really his personality. I tell people
mhm,
that my dad wasn't a drill instructor, but he would have made a great one. And I'm not sure if you've seen any movies where there were drill instructors, the guys that get the men and women ready for, their role in the military or combat or whatever. They're usually those guys that are intimidating and loud and,
mhm,
very forceful in their personality. And that was definitely my dad. And growing up, part of my life mastery journey was really wanting to believe I was more than the guy who was showing up. But a lot of that came from an insecurity in feeling like I had a father I never measured up to.
mhm.
And so there was this paradox of the two, right? Where he's always telling me what to do and what I do is not good enough. And in that place was a bit of a rebellion against that and believing that, I was more than that and trying to measure up to it. So part of that was I want to have my own path, but part of it was not being under somebody else's instruction. I'll just put it that way all of the
Wow.
time and not having to measure up to what they believe good is. And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't have standards in your life. And there's people that really draw things out of you that maybe you didn't have. I think there's value in that. But as a young man, feeling like you couldn't measure up to your father was something that was a challenge that I really spent time having to overcome. And business was one of those areas. Was
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to, I tell the people I work with, fear of failure, imposter syndrome were some of the things that were you could put titles on what I was dealing with. And what I tell people is you can't succeed away your fear and you can't
Mm.
succeed away your imposter syndrome because they come along for the ride. And so for me, business was the outworking of I believe there's something that I'm meant to do, an impact I'm supposed to have. But part of it was I don't want to have somebody else tell me how to live my life, what the highest level is I can achieve, what the thing is that I can do.
Yes. Can you elaborate on the statements? You can't succeed. You're out of your fear. You can't succeed out of that imposter syndrome. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, here's the truth of the matter, and you probably know it from people you've talked to and worked with, and I certainly have as well. But it started with my own journey and in believing what the world says, which is, well, just through social media and all these things that you're seeing the beautiful people with the beautiful things and the beautiful positions, power, income, or whatever. And you think that, oh, they've got it all together. And if I get there, if I have that success, well, then all of this fear, all of this worry, all of this stress, all of this anxiety, feeling like I'm not good enough will now go away. And what I found in the was that the opposite was the case. When I succeeded in business or in academics or in athletics, it not only didn't go away, but now there was a higher level of pressure, right? Because there's this old saying, "New levels, new devils." There's the reach new levels, you have more to lose. And so while you're worried about it when you're starting off your business or your academic career or your relationship, when you get to that place of success, now you have to maintain it and do more. First off, to continue to feed that fear so that you don't feel like you're a person who doesn't measure up, but also because you've got more to lose. So there's that higher level of anxiety. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't, as I tell the people, you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. I've given you a little bit of my past, and what my life has told me did tell me that I actually believed. Well, in that place of your life telling you something, you use those things, outward accomplishments, to substitute for an inward work. And in
Mm-hmm.
that place, it never goes away. You're just trying to manage it. I call it the hamster wheel of success. You're successful at whatever you do. You reach that goal, that mark that you had, and the joy from it lasts about 10 seconds. And then it's okay, now what?
Yeah.
Because you're not feeling any better. And so the next one will make me feel complete, feel accomplished, or the next one after that, or the one after that. If you aren't working on the inward part, working on identity and who you're created to be, then all these substitutes come along, but none of them will get you to the place of where you really want to be, feeling confident and passionate and purposeful in who you are.
Mm, that's so powerful, Mark. That's so powerful. I resonate with that a lot. And my TEDx was on, a very similar topic of that, of how I was chasing external validation and success in the traditional sense of the word. And like you said, it lasts for about 10 minutes. That hit of dopamine. When you get the pat on the back, it feels good for a little bit, but it is not fulfilling. It doesn't completely take away the pain, take away the fear, the scary. It doesn't take that away, and it lives with you until you go inward and start to work on the things that you need to work on. And it's different for everybody. And you've done that, and you've helped other people do that. Can you tell us what led to the creation of life mastery, of the work that you do?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So for me, of course, it was my own journey. And I say, of course, but a lot of people think that, we have, yourself or whoever else is somebody at successful levels. You think that they had it for everybody else. It was my idea for your benefit.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't any of that. It was really me walking through that journey of really starting to unpack some of those issues and challenges in my life, the feelings of failure, the feelings of not measuring up, and really fighting for the guy that was on the inside, the person I believed I could be, that person of passion and character and worth and value, that person of, integrity and life and purposefulness. The guy I was on the inside, I wanted to see on the outside. And but it
Mm.
was challenging. He wouldn't, I would still deal with fear. I would still deal with things, hold back and try and control my outcomes, because what if I fail at it? And in that
What did
journey of
that
trying to,
look like?
oh, I'm
What
sorry.
did that look like when you were holding back? Did you know it at the time when you're aware, or was there particular patterns that you found yourself in?
Oh yeah, I think we all do. We all know when we're playing small in our life. We can justify it. We can explain it away. We can, act that, oh, this is wisdom, or, I don't want to leap out too far because this might happen or that might happen, right? But we all know when we're playing small, and I certainly did in my own life. In that time where I wanted that big dream, that big goal, I wanted to go for that big thing, but what if it doesn't work out? And so in that place, you start to pare back your dreams. You start to water down your vision and the version of life that you're created for. And the problem with that is that there's more than that. And so it's a double-edged sword. I don't reach for the big goals, and there's a bit of comfort in that because I can control my outcome a little bit. But in that place, the disappointment, the shame, the worry, the sadness that I could have but I didn't,
Mm.
is something that you're having to deal with as well. So yeah, so all of that, and then just trying to figure it out in my own life, really starting to unpack identity. And so again, that man on the inside showing up on the outside. And as I started to unpack some of those things, I started to make some transformational um, strategies in place for mastering my thoughts and words and actions. I started to see me actually show up. It didn't
Mm.
mean that life wasn't challenging, right? Just because you kind of figure you out doesn't mean life doesn't come at you as well. But the difference was the response. The
Mhm.
difference was the fear that wasn't there, the worry and anxiety that didn't show up. The difference was the confidence of me in those places, in business and academics and athletics and the things that I was doing. And so in seeing that, like I'm sure with you, Reggie, when you find something you think is amazing, you share it with people around you, people you love and care about. And I started to, when you can see in others what you've seen in yourself, I could see those kind of same attributes in other people. And What I tell people is I found out it wasn't a me issue, but a we issue.
Mhm.
It wasn't about me and the things that I could or couldn't do. It was the same journey I met a lot of people who dealt with, whether they were trying to achieve academically or athletically or as an entrepreneur or business person, or they're just somebody living their day-to-day life, or they're having relationship issues and challenges. It's in that place that you start to see that the holes that are there, the things that you're using to overcome your insecurity, or at least for a moment. And so I started to share it in small ways with conversations and ideas and thoughts for them to maybe try out, and try to formalize it in talks and conversations and little teachings and weekend sessions and webinars. And then decided to formalize it so I could really, what I wanted to do was give them the blueprint that I had. So you
Mm.
can go from wherever you're at to the place of freedom, that place of life mastery, which for me and the people I work with is simply this: life mastery is you living from who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in every area of life. It's not me putting on an imitation of somebody else, not me mirroring what somebody of success has done. Because when I try and imitate somebody else, the best you can ever do is second place.
Mm.
And so it's not trying to find a way to convince yourself that you can be as good as somebody else, but really start to unpack the value and the worth inside of you, and saying, okay, well, now that I know who I am, what's the highest level? What's the biggest dream? What's the most audacious goal I can have that I can use in my life? Because it's in those places that fulfillment happens. Success can happen just from working hard, but fulfillment to me is you living out the life you're absolutely created for and knowing it. That's what fulfillment is. And that's kind of the goal we have.
Wow, wow, wow. So powerful. So powerful. You said the blueprint that you had, and that's what you're offering to other people. Where did pieces of that blueprint come from? What were your inspirations during that time when you were understanding and unpacking yourself? What did you lean on? What books, what videos, what did you lean on?
Early on, it was anything I could get my hands on, whatever personal development, self development kind of materials, whether it was a book, a course, anything free or anything I could afford to pay for. It
Hmm.
was really a lot of those. And that's where I'll say change happened, but it wasn't really the transformation I was looking for, because a lot of
Mm.
the cases they're dealing with the fruit, not the root. Like emotional stability, emotional management, right? Emotional intuitiveness, or whatever the things are they're working on, building habits that are continuing to, you have to continue to do those habits in order to have those results. When you're dealing with change that builds a habit, if I stop the habit, then I stop the change.
Yeah.
The thing that I was desiring and believing for was a transformation, not me having to work myself up and work really hard and be exhausted for the rest of my life. Because if I ever stop this, I lose the confidence, I lose the assurance. And right, if I ever stop saying my mantras, the thoughts, then the negativity are going to come in. But in
Mm.
that place, what I was looking for was transformation. So I went through a lot of personal development courses, and their value in them, and the scientific kind of analysis kind of things where you're dealing with neuroplasticity and the changes in the brain and all that. But really the breakthrough came from me in a faith journey. I'm a person who's a man of faith, and it was in that place in seeing in what I consider the Word of God instructions to live out, and not just philosophies that are nice or bumper stickers you want to put on your car, but how do I live this out? If there's a word that says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he," in there is an innate understanding that, okay, so if I'm not where I want to be, it starts with my thoughts. And so the thing that I need to master to get where I want to be, first off, is changing my thoughts to align with the future that I believe I have, not reminding me of the past that I've lived through. And so,
Yes.
yeah, so those were, in that faith journey and being able to find that framework for myself, I was able to kind of create, like I said, that blueprint, that roadmap of A to Z, always starting with identity and some of the other things we can talk about. But it gave a framework so you weren't just giving nice ideas for somebody else to figure out,
Yeah.
cool little sayings that now they've got to try and unpack. Okay, well, what does that mean, and how do I apply that? I'm a guy that wants it simple and straightforward, and so I tried to create something that was allowing that for other people. So you're not having to guess or figure it out, but you can actually apply the things, and in application, you find transformation.
I love that. I love that. And you said a lot of those things are dealing with the fruit and not the root. And the fruit being how I interpreted that is kind of how, our medical culture will treat symptoms and not the root cause of
Yeah,
whatever the underlying condition is. And We do that with a lot of different things. It's not just in medicine, but it's in a lot of different things, especially in our identity and our purpose and our true fulfillment. It's here is a mantra, here is a tip and tool that you can do once a day, every day, and this will change your life. And what you're saying is or what I'm hearing you say is that that's not where the true transformation comes from. It's a place that is much deeper than that. And for you, you found that through faith. And you've said the word identity multiple times, and it sounds like that is the beginning, the first pillar of the blueprint, the framework. Can you speak to that in the role of transformation, and then what are the other steps to the framework?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you call it a pillar because I have four pillars of life mastery. The first one is identity. The foundation, identity is the foundation of everything. Because the
Mm,
challenge is, it's like you talked about, and I was talking about as well. What's a fruit versus a root issue? So I'm in a
mhm,
relationship and we're arguing all the time, or we're disagreeing, or we're not getting along. Well, the fruit type of philosophy is okay, well, you need to figure out ways to communicate with each other so that you can express your ideas, she can express her ideas, you can do it in a safe place where you're heard, you're seen, and so is she. And in that place, you can find resolution for your issue, which is a fruit issue. The
mhm,
fruit issue is you and I aren't getting along, so we're going to build in structures for the conversation so we can make it happen. What
mm,
you're not dealing with is the root, which is this: you're not dealing with what she said triggered an insecurity on the inside of you, triggered something like with me as a child where I wasn't feeling like I was good enough. And then I'm in a relationship and my wife tells me I'm not doing something right or criticizes something whatever, something I did or didn't do. And in that place, this emotion comes up, and in that emotion creates a response. And the response is me lashing out, me being angry, me sulking and being silent and not talking to you, whatever those things are. So when you layer on top of that these tools, these habits of, oh, well, what you really need to do is take a breath and express how you feel and not blame her for it, but let her know the emotions that it's caused, you continue to have to do that.
mhm,
I continue to have habits that I have to maintain. If I don't maintain them, I don't continue to live at that level of what I call life management. Most programs in most places are really life management, not life
mm,
mastery. I think life mastery is the actual key. And the key is now start to understand, unpack it a little bit more, going back to what's the thing you're taking from it? What's the meaning you're taking from the experience? Because that meaning is tied to an identity statement. Meaning this, it's not that we had disagreements that you didn't like something I did. It's what that says about me.
mhm,
It's not that your childhood was traumatic and the challenges you walked through. Everybody has experiences, good and bad and horrible and amazing. And in that place, it's not the experience you walk through. I don't minimize the impact it's had on you, but it's the identity statement that you've taken from it. Me having a father growing up who seemed to criticize, seemed to always find a better way, seemed to always question why I did things this way. It wasn't that he was telling me a better way of doing things. It was an identity statement that says, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not capable enough. And in that place, it's the identity statement that changes the rest of your life. Because when you grow up and when you have bad grades, now all of a sudden it's that proof of it was right. You subconsciously believe it. You don't consciously know it, but you react to it anyways. And so you avoid those classes. Instead of
mm,
taking the advanced courses, you take the minimal course because I know I can pass that. I know can get at least a C. Or in that relationship, you don't go for those that amazing journey with the person you love. You go with the person that validates you where you're at, and then you
mhm,
wonder why your relationship isn't working out. So it
mm,
all starts with identity, who you're created to be versus what your life has told you. Apart from a transformational journey, I've never met a person yet, Reggie, who isn't living from what their life has told them, whether they're amazingly successful or not at all. And
mhm,
so for us, it all starts with identity. Who were you created to be? Because when you can start to unpack that, I believe there's an impact in the world that has every person's name on it. And it's not the same. You don't have to imitate somebody else. You don't have to have all their success, but there's something, there's a reason why you exist. And there's a reason why the world's different because of it. When you can start to unpack that value, that understanding of who you are, now all of a sudden we can have a disagreement. And it's just a disagreement, a thing that we need to walk through. I can have success or failure, and success doesn't tell me I'm amazing, and failure doesn't tell me I'm horrible. But both of them are just part of the journey that I'm walking through. So for us, it's unpacking identity. And
yeah,
one of the ways we do it is to create an I am statement. We do it early on in in the course, and I write about it in my book as well. It's a statement of who you're created to be. It's taking your experiences and setting them aside, your past and your pain and all of that. It's taking your successes and setting them aside. Because a lot of times we think we understand our identity, but we really only understand our resume. If I ask you who you are, it's probably going to be the things you've accomplished that you tell me first, not your character traits. But
Yeah.
it's the character traits that are the difference. It's a secret sauce of your life that matters in your relationship, that matters in your job or business, that matters in your schooling, that matters in your family. And so when we work, the work we start with is an I am statement. The statement is this: who are you created to be? I give you the first two words, you fill out the rest. The first two words are I am.
Hmm.
And then you write that down. If you're a person of faith, I invite you to pray about it first. If you're not, I believe that everybody knows that there's something on the inside of them. There's the you that you desire to be, and there's the you that shows up. That you that you
Hmm.
desire to be is probably closer to who you're created to be many times than the guy or the woman that shows up. But when you write that down, you do a couple of things. You reaffirm who you believe you are, and you give yourself a reminder that you can use to remind yourself of who you are before you walk in your circumstance, while you're going through challenge, or when you're not feeling your best. So
Yeah.
it's a mantra, it's an affirmation, but it's not some generic thing that I'm trying to measure up to that I don't believe anyway. But it's a reaffirmation of, no, this is who I am. I may have not shown up. I may have blown it today. I may have gotten in an argument that I shouldn't have, but this is the man I'm created to be. And when you continue to remind yourself of that, lo and behold, that man, that woman starts to show up.
Hmm. It's so true, and I wish I had my wallet with me, but I have a little index card, or kind of, it's like the size of a business card, and I did that exercise probably over 10 years ago. Over
Nice.
10 years ago, and a big part of it was I didn't, because I had achieved and I had done and I had roles, and I didn't want the roles to be on there. I didn't care about the roles. I wanted the essence of my spirit to
Yeah.
be expressed in that. And so there were things that were on there were that I knew were my abundant birthright,
Yeah.
and the feelings that I exude and feel, of joy, of peace, of love, and so many of those things. And I wrote those and I read those every day, multiple times a day. And it helped me to wire the way that my life operated, because one of them was about making healthy choices. And so when I went to grab the biggest burger, the biggest juiciest burger, that it tastes good, but it's not a healthy choice, and I know who I am and I know what I deserve, and I know, though it tastes good, it is not good for me, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's harming me, and I love me. And so when I bite that, I'm showing myself disrespect and not the level of love that I truly want to give myself. And I mean, for years, read that morning, night, and maybe a couple times in the middle of the day. And I started to see things change and work in the way of what I had written. And so I think that's such a powerful exercise for people to really truly, not just affirmations and I ams of things that you even like, when you write them and you say them subconsciously, you still don't believe. It's not that. It's something that you know deep in your core that is
Yeah.
you. And I love it. I love that so much. So identity, that's a huge and strong, like, we're gonna stand on that. That's such a strong pillar. What about the rest of the framework? Can you walk me through that in as much or as little detail as you want?
Yeah, for sure. But if I could add to what you were saying, because you were
Yeah.
very powerful in how you explained it for your own life, what I tell the people is you you either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. And the challenge is that when I don't know who I am, my life has to make up the difference. And
Hmm.
so, for anybody who's listening, if you're wondering why you start that program, you do that diet, you go for that, that college degree or that job or that business or whatever, and then you find yourself shrinking back, it's because of the opposite of what you explained. Because if you're not living from who you're created to be, then your life has to make up the difference in that, which means this: I'm having to have my life measure up to what I want it to be. And it's like this: I'm either doing this because it's who I am or to prove who I am. What
Hmm.
you were talking about it with your affirmation is, when I understand who I am, the choices I'm making, the things I'm doing, whether it's exercise or it's, you know, educating myself, or it's reaching for a business, or exploring a new job or what have you. I'm doing it because I know who I'm created to be, and this is me naturally living it out. What I tell
Mm-hmm.
people with life mastery is it's the easiest thing possible. When you know who you are, it's easy to make decisions, it's easy to take direction, it's easy to find those things and do hard things because you know that's you being lived out. The opposite is how we mostly do it. I'm going to prove that I'm somebody of worth by losing 100 pounds, by
Mm-hmm.
starting a business and becoming a millionaire, by having the most amazing relationship, or that awesome car in my driveway, right? And it's in those places where, if anybody listening is finding that those things aren't fulfilling and those things that they have mean nothing to them, it's because it's a proof of, meaning I need this to show I matter. I need this to show I have value. I need this to show I'm somebody, and it never works. But when you're living from who you are, now all of a sudden you still have a lot of the successes and the things that, the attributes that everybody else has. The difference between them is it's an outworking of who you are. And so there's great joy and satisfaction and fulfillment in them. They're not that substitute that you need to have more of. So,
Yeah.
so I love what you said there, because everything starts with that. If you
Yep.
don't start with that, then your outside world has to make up the difference, and you need more, and you need to have more, and then you get
Mm-hmm.
a divorce, and you have a third marriage, and you have a fifth one, or you have a million, and then you have 100 million, and it's still not worth it. You're still as miserable as somebody who's got nothing. Or you find that level of success, and for some reason it never seems to continue to work out. You always find ways of sabotaging yourself or making it fall short. It's because you truly don't believe that, and as a substitute you can only do it for so long before you just give up and say forget it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's the identity piece, and so we have four pillars of life mastery. But if I could backtrack for a quick second,
Yeah.
the thing that we apply to all of it is our three-step transformational strategy of mastering your thoughts, words, and actions.
Yes.
The thought one starts with that identity statement you're talking about, and then it uses it to apply to your thoughts, because the truth, like you already know, Reggie, is you can't have two thoughts at one time,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually choose the thoughts that you have. Which, by the way, was where my title of my book came from: Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time we
Yes.
live by default. We don't
Yes.
realize that we can design our thoughts. We can actually have the thoughts we think. We can actually entertain the ones that we want. We just take the negative thoughts that come in and we try to bludgeon them to death with our affirmation, with our favorite scripture, with those words that we don't believe but hope for, until it quiets down. That's life by default. Life by design is understanding that you can actually choose your thoughts. You can actually remind yourself, just like you said, and which I've done the same thing in my life. When you repetitively tell yourself who you are, you start to see that man or woman show up.
Yep.
So it starts with transformation, mastering your thoughts, words, and actions. It's understanding your identity, I am statement, and a couple others that we use as well, and that's applying them to your experiences.
Mm.
So it's reminding me of who I am before I walk into the journey of my day, so that guy shows up. It's not me responding to the life that happens and then trying to remember, oh yeah, what is it I'm supposed to be doing or saying? So when
Yes.
you start your day with it, you actually show up with it during your day. But it's also unpacking your past experiences. So what I mean is some of the things I talked about, and I'm sure you've got those in your journey as well, those life experiences that have hurt you, that have damaged you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest ones for me in my spiritual walk was my youngest daughter's 26. When she was 2 years before she was born, my wife and I were expecting twins, and we lost them.
Mm.
And there was some things that happened spiritually in that journey, and trying to feel like I'm not good enough, I don't get the same blessings that everybody else has, and in walking those things out and trying to walk in that journey, that left a mark on me. It left an identity statement, and in that place it has an impact in your life. How much are you willing to go out? How much are you willing to love? How much are you willing to be vulnerable?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got hurt last time, and hurt really bad, and I don't even want to deal with it anymore. Two
Mm-hmm.
years, 1 year, yeah, 1.5 years after we lost our twins, my wife she was pressing me to have a baby. She wanted to have another child, and I didn't want to do it. And I may have won out, but I didn't in this case, which is why we have our youngest daughter. But the reason I didn't want to do it was because that was a place of vulnerability and belief and hope that I didn't want to give myself to, because it had left me hurt and damaged before. Everybody has these experiences that we've walked through. And as I talked about before, the challenge isn't the experience, it's the meaning you take from it. And that meaning isn't, it was good, it was bad, it was horrible, it was amazing. The meaning is, I'm not good enough. I don't get those things. I'm not worth loving. I can't have great things in my life. I can't have the life I believe I can. And in that identity statement, you make choices and decisions and actions to live it out.
Yeah.
And so part of the work we do is dealing with experiences. You showing up as the person you're created to be, but you understanding, we talked about it with that relational thing. We're fighting now because of an insecurity then. Well, that insecurity came from an identity statement, which came from a hurt, a wound, an issue, an experience. When you start to unpack that experience and you start to create a new meaning, and the new meaning is aligned with your identity. So for me, growing up and feeling like I didn't measure up, the truth of the matter is I could never measure up to who my dad was because I wasn't supposed to. When you
Mm.
can unpack those things, when you can overcome a lie with the truth of who you are, now all of a sudden it loses a hold on you. So now I'm a person of boldness. Now I'm a person of confidence. Now I'm a person who's willing to fail at things because it's not something telling me who I am. It's just a part of the journey towards the success I'm believing for.
Yeah.
So identity is the first pillar, experiences is the second one, meaning is the third one. What's the meaning you're taking from your experiences? The meaning you're taking from your experience today. My wife and I got in a fight last night. Are we gonna have a divorce? Is this not going to work out? The meaning you take today isn't something that's new. It's just a reaffirmation of what you already believe.
Yeah.
And so when you unpack that meaning, attach it to an experience to speak the truth into that experience, understanding who your identity is, now all of a sudden it changes everything. Now I can walk through my life with the truth and objectivity of what it is, not expecting it to not work out because it didn't work out last time. Now I can be bold and courageous in my life, show up like you talked about in my bio as the hero that you're created to be. That's
Hmm.
the person you're looking to be. And that person can't show up if I'm bound to what my past has told me I am. But when I understand the truth of
Yes.
who I am, now I can live it out. And then the fourth pillar we have is emotions. And I use it last because most programs use it first.
Mm.
Meaning this, we say that the emotion is the thing that we're dealing with, right? It's that fruit versus root. But here's the truth. When I understand my identity, it allows me to not just walk through my experiences fully showing up as who I am, but being healed from the past, which has lied to me about what I was not. It creates a meaning that aligns with my identity so I understand who I am walking into it, the answer to be given, not the question to be figured out. And in that place, even in stressful, challenging situations, they're still stressful, they're still challenging. My emotions align with who I am, not with the worst case that I'm afraid is going to happen. A lot of
Mhm.
times people deal with the emotion, but they always have to re deal with the emotion because when stress happens, anxiety shows up. I fight
Mhm.
it off with my mantra and then it goes away. And then next time stress happens, anxiety shows up. But when I understand who I am, now all of a sudden the emotions that show up are the ones aligned with my identity.
Mhm.
Emotions of confidence, emotions of assurance, emotions of peace, emotions of joy, emotions of being willing to do the vulnerable things, the hard things, the authentic things, because that's who you are. So
Yeah.
those are the four pillars: identity, experience, meaning, and emotion.
Wow. Wow. I feel so lucky sitting in this seat as I have so many great conversations, and a lot of times I feel like they're meant directly for me. Like it's just things that I need to hear, and I'm so grateful that the world gets to hear it as well. But you said so many amazing things, and one thing that stuck out to me, because I told you before we hopped on the call, I lost my voice this past weekend at a retreat, and the retreat was an inner child retreat, healing my inner child, healing some of those inner, going inward and
Hmm.
looking at those experiences and understanding some of those statements that I had been living for so long. And a couple of those were, I am not lovable, I am
Hmm.
abandoned, I can't honestly express my feelings. I have to perform. I A lot of those things that came from a background of um, performative love and not unconditional love, of seeing people walk away that I wanted to love me, and so uncovering a lot of those things. But one of the wildest things was we did this breath work exercise, and I had this shirt on, and the shirt said kind thoughts, kind words, kind actions. And in the breath work, I had this experience where I just like ripped my shirt and just like ripped it all away. Not because of the message, not because of anything, but like just hearing you talk about the thoughts, the words, and the actions, and connecting it back to that shirt and just knowing that like I was in such a vulnerable state in that moment, and but vulnerable in a positive way because I was healing
Yeah,
through that experience. And the identity, the experience, the meaning, just so much power in what you just spoke. And I'm so grateful. Again, I'm so grateful to be in this seat, to be able to receive that message. And I thank you. I thank you so much for sharing it.
absolutely. I think the best conversations have two people involved. So what I say is really in response to what you're giving. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious for someone who is out there and looking for an action step to start to get toward that identity, to start to to get the distractions out of their head and the things that the
Yeah.
world told them they ought to be. Like, how can they start to hear themselves? How can they start to connect with their true self? Maybe a couple of things, or maybe one thing to bring some of that awareness to somebody who is hearing this for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Reggie. So, for the people I work with, it all starts with the I am statement. That's where identity starts. The challenge is a lot of times we are so tied to our past and our experiences or what the world says success is supposed to look like and who we're supposed to be that it's hard to open up to a voice that's different. And so,
Mhm.
we actually have three exercises. The first is the I am statement, but the second one is what I call a celebration list. And what I invite them to do is write down a celebration list of 20 things. And what it is not is a celebration of the things you've done, your accomplishments, your resume, your trophies, all of that. It's none of that at all. The celebration list is really the answer to this question: what do you love about you?
Mhm.
And again, it's not your outcomes. It's not the things that you've accomplished. The things that we want you to write down are things you see in yourself that you love. So for me, I have blue eyes, and I love that. I'm 6'3", which means I was 3 inches taller than my father, and I absolutely love that. I I laugh at goofy humor, and I love chocolate, and I love dogs, as you probably could tell
Yes,
as the
I've
dog was walking in the
heard.
background. Um, those are things I love about me. It's not things I've had to work up to. It's not accomplishments I've had. It's not even tied to my past. It's simply characteristics of who I am. So, for the people that are listening to this, an I am statement is absolutely paramount, and the celebration list doesn't make up for it. But many times the celebration list will open it
Mhm.
because in that place you can start to see there's value in me. I'm not sure if it's men only or men and women as well, but many times for men, if I tell you to tell me something about yourself, to look in the mirror and describe yourself, you'll probably first see the things that you're not, the things that you don't like,
Mm.
the things that somebody's better at, the things that all of those kind of attributes. Many times we don't give ourselves permission to find things about ourselves that we love, but
Yep.
it's in that place that you can have that vulnerability that you've talked about, that I can only be as vulnerable as I can love myself.
Yep.
If I can't love myself, then I can't let anybody else in far enough to see the real me. And in that place, I can't be the real me that is needed. And so
Yes.
when you start to understand who you are, when you start to love who you are, you can start to see the things in you that have value and worth. And in that place, even when things don't work out well, you're good with who you are. So the
Yes.
celebration list would be one of those. And I don't want to understate how important it is to master your thoughts. Nothing happens in
Mhm.
your life that wasn't first a thought in your head. What I tell
Yes.
the people I work with is who you think you are, you'll become.
Mm.
And so if you don't believe you are where you're supposed to be, where you haven't reached that level of life mastery that you desire for, it's probably first started with your thoughts. And it's a
Yeah.
journey that takes practice, like you talked about doing it for years and myself included. It's not something that you need to do forever because I'm sure you're in this place, Reggie, and I am as well, where it's much easier for me to show up as who I am, not to convince myself of who I'm supposed to be.
Yep.
But in that place, sometimes we do need reminders. But all of it comes down to what are you saying about you? As I tell the people I work with as well, if your thoughts aren't aligned with who you're created to be, then they're lying to you and they
Mhm.
need to change. And so, how do you change them? Not with generic affirmations or hopeful statements that you're hoping to become someday, but unpacking who you are and reminding yourself of it on a daily basis. The I am statement, a celebration list, and using a practice of reminding yourself of it often is going to make a world of difference for you.
Yes. Oh man. What you said remind the celebration list especially reminded me of again my TEDx, where I open and close it with a statement. that you are enough. You are worthy of all the greatest things that life has to offer. And I love you simply for being you. And you pointed out so vividly, like, vulnerability, how I say it and how I see it is vulnerability is the ultimate act of self-love. Because in order to love the person that I am today, I have to love all those different parts of my past. And I have fully embraced that. Like, I fully embraced the parts that the world may call a mistake, may deem, negative and bad and criticize. But like that, all of those things have made me the person that I am today. And I love the person that I am today. And
Amen.
so it's embracing that. And I just it's so much goodness. I hope that people listen to this on repeat and take notes and make those lists and make those I am, but also just reach out for the support, because we need accountability. We need people to help us through this journey. And I want to get to that and how people can reach you and connect with you in your work. But before we close this out, I have another. Oh, I want to go back to another thing you said too. Was that when you ask people who they are, they'll start to tell you things that they're not. And I think that is super powerful, because if you ask people what they like, or if you ask people who they are, something that should be an affirmative, it'll turn negative quickly. It may be the third or fourth or fifth thing, but just pay attention to that in your own thinking, in your own
Yeah.
ways of communicating. If I ask you, what do you like? And you say, I don't like chocolate. Well, what do you like? You have to start to think about those things that you are and that you like and that you are sent here and meant to be a part of. And so I thought that that was really powerful. But this segment here is a fill in the blank. And so you just let me know the first thing to come to mind, as short or as long as you would like. Vulnerability makes me feel blank.
That's a great one. Hmm. Vulnerability makes me feel naked and unashamed.
Mm,
There's
mm,
a yeah. Again, I'm a person of faith. There's a portion of the scripture. It's really early on. It's in the Bible. It's in Genesis, and it talks about Adam and Eve being with God, and it said this, that they were naked and unashamed, and that's a
mhm,
physical, obviously, um, a physical description of who they were, but also an emotional description of who they were. But in many cases, vulnerability is that for us. Vulnerability is me feeling naked in front of you. And in that place, I can feel shame, or I can feel guilt, or I can feel worry, stress, or what have you. But in the place of understanding who you are, then that vulnerability is me really just showing up as me. And like you talked about in what you say in your TED talk, it's me showing up, and that's enough. And that's not only enough, but that's perfectly exactly who I'm supposed to be. And it's not in response to you, and it's not because of you, but it's in
mhm,
front of you.
mhm.
And so that place, it's being naked and unashamed.
Wow.
We get the naked part because we feel that way when things go wrong, when something happens, when we're exposed for something we do, or when we have those thoughts that are telling us we're not good enough. The
Mhm.
unashamed part is the part that'll set you free.
Mm, dang, so powerful. Living life by design means blank.
Living life by design means living exactly who you're created to be, not what your past has told you, not things you're using to try and measure up.
Mhm. My greatest superpower is blank.
My my wife wouldn't think this, but my greatest superpower is impatience. In that, I want everything and I want it now, and that's led me down some
Mm,
roads of having to backtrack and recover from some choices where I leaped out in front of what I should have. But here's the truth of the matter. Again, from a person that's a spiritual person, what I what I understood when I was doing some things, and I mean, I quit my job because I believed I was supposed to be in ministry. Unfortunately, the income that I felt I was supposed to have didn't come, and we almost had a financial disaster. And in those places, a lot of times in our life, we can do things and beat ourselves up for them for the rest of our life.
mhm,
We can always remember back to, oh, I did that, or I didn't do that, or for us as men, we want to be leaders and people in our household that are providing, and sometimes when you're not, you could feel like you're horrible and you're not measuring up. And what I understood when I started to walk through that life mastery journey, and started to recognize those times where I always felt guilt for my past mistakes. And it doesn't mean the past mistakes weren't mistakes. It's definitely were mistakes that I needed to walk through. The challenge is it's the identity statement that you take from it. And in that place, the thing I thought was a failure was actually a success in this. I believe that when you're reaching out for the things that you believe you're called to, the life that you're created for, even if you fail, it's in the intent in being willing to believe in yourself and bet on yourself that you should be immensely proud. Because whether I succeed or not, the truth is, I bet on me. I bet
Mm,
on what I believed was the best life I could live and the best person I could become. And in that place, that's not something to be ashamed of. I need to learn from the mistakes, but I need to be proud of me for being willing to try, for being willing to take that leap, even if the leap was into the darkness or, onto the next thing. It was the fact that I was willing to do it that I should be immensely proud of.
wow. 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 If I could tell if I could give a piece of advice to my younger self, it would be blank.
You're better than how you're showing up, and someday you're going to find the path to get there.
And lastly, when I need inspiration, I turn to blank.
For me, it's the word of God, or it's people who are overcoming hard things in their life. I get immense inspiration from other people being brave at doing hard things, even if they're not people that are known and are famous.
Yeah, definitely. I think it comes even it's more powerful from folks who aren't in that category. So, oh, Mark, this has been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you for sharing this time with me and sharing the wisdom that you've gained throughout your life. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience or any things that you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, I think, just in summary, what you said in your TED talk was profound to me in that you are enough and you're good enough and you're worthy to be loved. And the thing that I did right that I talked about that I was proud of is that the thing I would give you for yourself, whether you're in the journey of just now trying to figure it out, you're in the middle of a mess that you've created, you're on your way to that life mastery life you've believed for, or you're anywhere in between. Here's the one secret thing that most folks don't talk about, but it's that being willing to bet on yourself. It doesn't matter where you're at in the journey. What does matter is my unwillingness to compromise and my belief that I'm going to get there. If you do
Mhm.
that, you'll find the path. It may not be the one you've believed for, it may not be the one you're currently on, but what you'll find is that at the end of that road is the man or woman showing up that you believed you could be. And there's nothing you can succeed at in life that is greater than the feeling of that guy, that woman showing up and knowing this is exactly who I am. You may take, my life mastery course or something Reggie has to offer, something somebody else has. But the one thing that nobody has that you need to give is that uncompromising belief that I'm going to get there and I'm going to bet on myself until I do.
Absolutely. Mark, how can people contact you? How can they follow your work? How can they work with you? Can you give us some contact info?
Yeah, absolutely. I try and be a one stop shop, Reggie, and my one stop is my website. So that's freedom 4 life.net, freedom 4 life.net. My course is out there. There's an ebook version of my book out there, so you can have it on any device you own. Obviously, like everybody else, my book's on Amazon because everything's on Amazon, so you can get it there. But if you want to reach out to me directly and ask me questions about Life Mastery, how it's for you, how you can implement it, you can reach out to me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at freedom 4 life.net.
Awesome, Mark. And I'll put that in the show notes so that it's easy for people to find. Mark, this has been fantastic. I love the work that you're doing. I love the person that you have become and the person that you've always been. I can see the light that shines within you and it is brightened and it is you're sharing that with the world. And I appreciate that so much. Mark, with all the things that you could be doing and all the places you could be, I appreciate you being here with me, embracing vulnerability.
It's been a great conversation, Reggie. You've made the highlight of my day. I appreciate it.
Mm, thank you. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Vulnerability Muscle. If you've enjoyed these conversations around vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us to continue to do the work that we do, but it allows other people to witness the power of vulnerability. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or wherever you're listening from. And don't forget to spread the word. You can follow us at Vulnerability Muscle on Instagram and me personally at Reggie D Ford across all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and support. And remember, embracing vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It is the source of your greatest strength. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but most workouts are. So keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.